Giving up is what often comes to mind when we think about Lent, and instead, I would like us to think about practicing Lent. What might that look like? First, let's remind ourselves what Lent is. It is that 40 days before Easter where we traditionally fast. We think about what we can give up in order to focus more on God. And that fasting or that giving up, that's to create space, and it's to help us to recognize how our appetites, those things that we hunger for, might actually be stopping us, hindering us from living more fully for Jesus. So we give up to remember what is important to God. And what is that? Micah 6:8 says, "This is what God requires, only this, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God." So again, we fast to create that space for what God wants. Isaiah 58:6 sheds some really interesting light on what fasting is that might be a little different than how we traditionally think of it. It says, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke." So we learn in Isaiah that fasting is for the purpose of serving God more in other ways. So given this, what are some ways that we can do this during those 40 days? We can focus, we can take some intentional time to focus on verses like Micah 6:8 and Isaiah 58:6. We can pray intentionally every day to have the eyes to see who Jesus wants us to see, the ears to hear what Jesus wants us to hear. And we can take that out into the world, take that serving, that love out into the world. And there are lots of things that we can do. Right around here, we can serve at Interfaith Shelter once a week, maybe twice a week. We can go right across the street to Arbor Manor Nursing Home, and we can visit with people intentionally and regularly. We can work with the anti-trafficking initiatives on the campus of Spring Arbor University. Or we could go across the street and be part of the Spring Arbor Free Methodist Church community group called Set Free that also works with anti-trafficking initiatives. And if we say that we don't have time for these kinds of things, then that's where some of that giving up can come in. We might give up use of our phone, even looking at our phone, for every morning of Lent, maybe every afternoon or maybe every evening of Lent. And we could say, well, here's the show I love to watch, but I'm not going to watch that during Lent because that will free up space in my life to do some of those things that God might want me to be more intentionally focusing on. Taking on the mindset of practicing Lent helps us to be better equipped to participate in the world, to be compassionate, to again remember on our own relationship with our appetites. In other words, practicing Lent helps us to live more like God wants us to live, and thereby live out the message and mission of Jesus to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves.